Board, it's my pleasure to welcome back John Stricker.
Thank you.
And I want to introduce my son. He made the trip from Eastern Michigan. So he runs track and he works and has full schedule, so I appreciate him coming through the snowstorm. The almost April snowstorm to see this. So nice to see you. Welcome back. Thank you.
Thanks for coming down.
You bet. Thank you. Hello.
He can hear you.
Okay.
Oh, he sees and hears.
Yeah, you bet. Nice to see. Nice to see you.
Thanks for coming back.
You bet. Good to see you. You still have the old hands there.
Still have the cold.
Warm heart.
Warm heart.
Oh yeah, you said that. I remember that, yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Yep.
Do I
You're up.
Start with the presentation.
Yes, you do.
So is it a clicker or?
I think it's over there.
You stand on the other side of the
Oh,
podium.
okay. All right, all right.
All the stuff.
And then I advance it, just hitting the keys.
Remember, you're asking board members.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't know.
I'll just hit the arrow keys will be fine. Okay, very good. All right. A 10-minute presentation. I'm a runner, so we will start a watch here. This evening's presentation didn't take me long to come up with something. I wanted to really get to the heart of the matter of what we do in public education and all education for that matter. And that is simply this, student achievement is our focus. And not only student achievement, but a high level of student achievement. And not only that, but for all students. And if I may quote one of the board members, on my first slide there, I did take a tar from the first interview. And that is to be the very best at it. As teachers, I'm sure we have teachers in the audience, administrators, community members, and parents. I think it's important, people, as you get to know me, this is a great opportunity for me to show you what student achievement is to me. Again, student achievement is our primary function in a school. And student achievement is much more than just the academics. I've actually done some surveys of my own, and there's several times I'll ask 10 people what student achievement is. I'll ask parents, community members, even students and teachers. And right away people start talking about test scores, subject matter like reading, writing, science, social studies. Certainly those are factors of student achievement, but student achievement is more than that. I believe that student achievement is also life skills and a sense of community. Now back to the academic knowledge portion. I want to make sure people also understand about me in this 10-minute presentation. That while core classes are very important, and that is what we do, and that is what is measured. I understand that. But encore classes are, in my opinion, equally important. Because not every student is going to be a college prep student, and many students are going to go right into the job force. And I believe that the encore classes are very important. I myself have a passion. I taught industrial arts, and I have a passion for those encore classes. So student achievement to me is certainly academic information, but it's core and encore classes. Life skills is next under a type of student achievement. Life skills, I have it in this order in particular, because you can have all the academic knowledge in the world. And so we could have a student that obtains straight A's across the board in core and encore classes. But if that student is not able to apply that information in their life, what does that academic knowledge mean, other than they can score a high test score? Certainly important, it gets them into college, that's very important, I'm not downplaying that. But if that student's not able to apply that to their life, then I feel, my view of student achievement, that we haven't done that student service. And so I believe that student achievement is also life skills, as work ethic, personal care, social and communication skills, organization skills, and that last one's very important. That last example I have, coping skills. In our society right now, there's several issues people have. Our society, you hear about it all the time. And again, if we've imparted academic knowledge to students, and they're not able to communicate that and apply that, and have the coping skills, the tools to get through life itself, I don't know what that academic knowledge will really do for them if they don't have those life skills. And last one there, sense of community. I believe that is also student achievement that can be measured. Because especially the older I get, when I talk to the senior classes, I share with them, I meet with the senior class periodically. That's my end product, very important to me. I refer to myself as the old man. I said that's an old man thing. Because again, if they have academic knowledge and they have the life skills to apply it, they work hard, have the coping skills, they're very organized. But even what good are those two things if it doesn't come together for others? What are we teaching our young people if a student achievement isn't part of the sense of community, the greater of the group, doing for others, helping others? I think that's vital, and I think it's an important part of student achievement. How? Well, if you've read the book, it's a book I'll refer to often. It's Good to Great, Jim Collins. I like that book because they studied the top 100 companies in the world. I like it, very analytical. And they, of course, there's common threads. Jim Collins, author, wasn't surprised that there's common threads that all the top 100 companies in the world obtain, that have within their structure. One of the top qualities of the top 100 companies in the world is the term they use is have the right people on the bus. No surprise. It's no surprise. In this study, no matter what product it was, if you have the right team, education being no different, you're going to accomplish much. And so what do? Pretty simple. It's a bullet point. You hire and support great teachers, administrators, and support staff. And then, of course, what are we in the business of? Curriculum. We ensure that we have quality curriculum, and by the way, I define that if there are teachers in the audience, that is, the ownership is the teachers of that curriculum process. And you have excellent equipment, and you work, of course, with your customers, your parents and your students. Life skills. Someone might say, well, you can't measure life skills, and how do you incorporate that? Well, I'll tell you this. I have learned leadership starts from the top. And the culture is set in this room. You bet. Example is not one thing. It's everything. And I believe that the example starts right here of modeling from this room through central office to teachers, support staff, bus drivers, everybody that's a part of our team. That we model the life skills that we're asking the students to follow. And so you model and incorporate necessary life skills through your school community, environment, and within your curriculum. The next one there, sense of community, same thing. The example starts from the top. It starts in this room. I'll take ownership as superintendent. That begins with me. It begins with me, that example of how I take the skills I have, the knowledge I have, and help others. And in this room, with our central office, principals, parents, teachers, our whole school community, we need to model that for other students, or for our students. And so you build and foster student engagement with your local school community and beyond, helping others. Benchmarks. I believe in accountability, and I should be held accountable as your superintendent for what I'm asking. And so the benchmarks, academic knowledge, as I discussed in the first round interview, that's qualitative and quantitative information, test scores, and discussion, and listening to our teachers, listening to our students, listening to our parents, and doing a lot of listening, the qualitative information. And it also is the test scores, teacher reports, and parent communications that make up how we measure academic knowledge. Life skills, how do you measure that? A lot of people say you can't measure that. Sure you can. It's qualitative and quantitative as well. You can look at behavior data. How many students had detentions? How many students last quarter had suspensions, expulsions, and so on? You are able to measure whether the life skills that you want to impart upon your students, that student achievement piece, you're able to measure it. You can also measure it with participation data, because students learn a lot by participating in music and drama and athletics. Attendance records, graduation rate is very key, in citizenship observations. Sense of community as well. You can measure a sense of community. Are our students involved in our school community? Are our students involved for the greater good of others outside of our school community? This is the only handout that I have. It's what I want to leave with you in tonight's presentation regarding student achievement. Some might call it a belief statement. Really, more specifically, it's just tonight's presentation summary for me.
Thank you.
Anybody that wants one, you're welcome to have one. To summarize this evening's presentation, we as educators are working with the world's most precious commodity. That's our students. It must be our mission to see that students achieve to the highest level of their ability, no matter what that ability is. Understanding that what? That we're working with human beings. That we're working with children that have spiritual, emotional, intellectual, and physical characteristics as human beings. The last sentence I should have underlined, and that's my closing sentence for sure. I get into the schools often, as I shared with you in New Lothrop, and I would do the same thing here. And what I've found is not only the older students that can read through you, certainly people can read through, but the younger kids can too. That last sentence is key. We need to accomplish such regarding student achievement with authentic love in our hearts. Not just for the children that it's easier, the children that achieve, the children that behave themselves all the time, the children that are easier to work with, but what? For what? For each child. And so that's what I would like to leave you with, and that is my presentation on student achievement, what student achievement means to me. I don't have extra time, so I just flip it up there. I want to show proof. I had some funny looks from the audience and from the board when I said I went duck hunting. It's some red-tailed something or other. I don't know the name of it, but I was told it was a very expensive duck if you raise them. And I know this will be a controversial slide because you really can't see that duck, can you?
That and you shut the expensive duck.
But do I really have one? That will be the controversy to live on. Do I really have one? But and note the frostbite on my nose there, that it truly was a very cold morning. I was a trooper to go out there and go duck hunting. But anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, first question is, how do you determine when there's any particular issue requires your personal attention or should be delegated to someone else?
Well, you have protocols in place. You have protocols in place that most of that is defined for you. And so every situation that comes up in a school district shouldn't be, if I may say, shooting from the hip, to where, okay, who's going to take care of that? So I have found in my experience as superintendent that 9 times out of 10 our protocols are in place, and the protocols are reinforced that, hey, this is a building level situation, this is a teacher situation, this needs to go to the superintendent. I believe, though, that problems need to be handled as close to the source as possible. Of course. So if a teacher has an issue in the classroom with a parent, that teacher should try to work out with the parent. If it needs to escalate to the next level, it's a building principal, and then it might come to me. I believe in protocols like that. I believe those protocols need to be in place. It's not a power structure of any type. It's more that the closer to the source you can handle a problem, the better. And so there is that 1 time out of 10 that it's a unique situation that may come to my attention. And if that situation comes to my attention, then it's just simple communication. So a building principal may say, hey, I have this situation, it's a unique situation. For example, maybe we found a weapon in a locker room. And I feel you really need to know about this. I know we have a protocol in place for safety and weapons and what we're going to do. I know that's in place, but this is something that this is unique for our school. How do you want to handle that? I also believe in small communities, and no matter what that situation is communication. So I'll have ongoing communication with the school administrators of what information may need to go to you as board members. Just this information that, hey, just a heads up, this happened in school today, you might hear about it today. I believe that needs to be in place as well. So to recap the answer, 9 times out of 10, there should be a protocol and reinforcement of that protocol of how to handle that situation as far as what level it should be taken care of. But there is the 1 time out of 10, simple communication. Call me and ask me.
Okay.
John, can you give us an example of your most innovative initiative during the last 5 years? How that initiative came to be and how you implemented it?
It is seeming to be innovative. For me, I don't know if it's really innovative. And of course, we're in a technology plan, and there's some innovation and certainly cutting edge things that we're looking at doing with technology. But I was pretty disturbed by some data. We have high test scores in our school, and we have a high rate of students that go to college. But I found looking at the data that our seniors that were graduating going to college weren't finishing college. And our percentage went down to pretty much the state average. So we had been above state average, of test scores and then going to college, and then all of a sudden we were at state average of students that start college and finish college. And so the RSD is actually watching what I'm doing as something that's innovative. Really, I just went to the source. I went to the students. And like I said, I met with the seniors periodically, so it helps I have a relationship with them. And I asked the students, talked to them, and I asked them, why do you think students are starting college and not finishing college? And their answers were very direct. And again, I have a relationship with them, so you need to know that. Well, Mr. Stricker, they'd say, well, money's an issue. College is very expensive right now, and we finally get these student loans, and we really don't know where to seek money, and people just drop out. Or they may say, my brother went to college and he partied too hard. He got in college, he wasn't used to the freedom, and then he wasn't able to finish. So I took that information, and right now we're working with our senior class, and the first thing that we did is we sought to have 100% of our students, our seniors, apply for college. And I'm very proud to say that we have 100% of our seniors that apply for college. Now we're working with our seniors as far as making sure, to the best of our ability, 100% of them fill out financial aid, even if they don't need it, even for scholarship reasons. I stress to them that borrowing money's maybe not a good thing to do, and getting in debt, I stress that, but for scholarship potential and so on, that's the phase we're in right now. And then myself, the high school principal, and the guidance counselor, we're taking the kids to MSU for a day, and we're going to spend time with them, and we're going to have different students from New Lothrop talk to those seniors and tell them about, hey, when you get here, you're going to have some freedom. Here's how you handle that. And so the RESD is watching what I'm doing on that, so it's considered somewhat innovative. But as far as what probably the typical answer you would get this evening as far as innovation is with our technology. We just passed the technology bond, and we attended the technology conference, or several of our teachers attended that this past month. And we're going to learn how to use this technology, the newer technology, in a very effective way in the classroom. So that's also innovation.
Did you spearhead that technology, or does it?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. When I say spearheading, I was the one that got the initiative going and motivated people. But again, my leadership style, as I'm evolving as a leader, is to get other people excited and develop other leaders that are taking over and taking off with it. So I'll stress that maybe through a few answers tonight, that where I am with leadership is understanding my job is to develop other leaders and support them, have the right people in place and support them. So with the technology, certainly I was the one that got it started and communicated, and then I was the one responsible for the bond campaign and so on. But I'm excited that my building principals, and I have some teacher champions in each building that are taking over and doing a great job. And that goes a lot further than if I'm doing it. People want to hear from those people, not necessarily from the superintendent on that.
John, I just want to ask you, how in the world did you get 100% of your seniors to apply for college?
Oh, wow, you had to ask that question.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
it's a
a
fair
big
question.
feat.
Fair question. We worked with them. We basically had actually, it was a retired counselor come in. We had time that the students can come down, and we would walk them through it. But I told them that if we got 100%, that I would take them when we go to MSU to lunch wherever they wanted to go.
So you bribed them. That's fair, though.
Yes, to the camera and to the world, yes I did, but I tell you, it worked, so, but yes, yeah.
Where did they pick to go to lunch?
Oh, you guys, come on. We will sit in a section separate, certainly from the bar area, but Buffalo Wild
I
Wings.
knew you were gonna say that.
Getting some strikes against me, these questions. I will have to say, I told
Just curiosity.
my son Clay and I were talking in the back room, what kind of questions they asked. I would not have said, where am I taking the seniors to lunch? I'm not prepared for that. So yes, I bribed them. Let's get it down. We're going to Buffalo Wild Wings.
Okay.
There we go. It worked.
Okay, John, how do you assess and measure teacher performance?
The teacher assessment tool that we used was created by our school district. And that's proof in the pudding that it's not just words, because I know there's teachers out there. That would be an example of proof that our teachers drive our process. Certainly, the teachers know as they're helping us develop that tool, there are certain criteria that we have to have in there for it to meet the state standard, and the state is going to come up with a new evaluation. But the teachers were part of our school improvement teams that created the tool that they use. Now, if you remember first round interview, I stressed I do not feel teachers are at their best running around scared for their job, running around scared of a test score, running around not trusting administration. Are they going to use this evaluation against me? I do not feel people are at their best. Should people be held accountable? Heck yes. Should evaluations be authentic? Heck yes. They need to be direct, and everyone has something they can work on. But it was a teacher-created tool that we use. The teachers even evaluate themselves using that tool. So that evaluation, the school administrator's evaluation come in, and it gives them a chance to really have some dialogue there. So our tool has worked out well for us. That's why, if you remember the first round question of something that really gets me a little upset is the state is going to top down some evaluation tools. So be it. We'll do what we have to do. But even when they do, I'll meet with the teachers in a professional development session, and this takes time, and that's back to that trust issue. The teachers need to trust administration, and the teachers need to know that we're not using the evaluation tool to get you. We're using the evaluation tool to make you better, to make us all better. And that is very important. I feel people are at their best that way. So the evaluation process is what it should be, but it's not everywhere. My sister's a teacher in Indiana, and that's why I know firsthand. And I can use her as an example because she's my sister. And what's going on in Indiana with her whole evaluation system, such a large percentage is to that ISTEP test score. That's the bottom line, and they're starting to move quickly. That's how she'll be paid, fired or hired, or maintain her job. My sister and my friends that teach in Indiana are not at their best when that's their motivation. Remember, and that's why I love that I was able to give that presentation on student achievement, because we, in my opinion, are only measuring one aspect of student achievement. I think the other two apply more to young people's lives than that first one. Understanding that academics and curriculum, that's what we do. But anyway, that's the evaluation tool we use, and it involves a lot of dialogue and a lot of conversation. And one thing I'm very proud of building principals, and I'm sure they do the same here, they're in the classroom quite often. It's not a one-time, hey, I'm coming to evaluate you this day, be ready to go, and I'm going to be there an hour. No, if they're in and out of the classrooms often. I myself get into every classroom every 2 weeks when I pass out the newsletter I talk about. So even you can see a lot in that little visit and handing a newsletter to someone. So that's all part of it as well as an ongoing. Because there shouldn't be any surprises, especially with my school administrators. It shouldn't be that all of a sudden on an annual evaluation I call you and say, hey, these were the 10 things all year that bothered me about you, and you got minuses. I see my principals every day, and I understand this is a little bit bigger school. I understand that, so it may not be every day, but it would be periodic, to where if there's something that you're not doing correctly or something I think you should work on, I'm going to let you know right away. Because why? Shame on me if I would allow that to go on in performance in a certain building not to be what it could be, because I didn't mention I was waiting for an annual evaluation. Shame on me.
Could you describe a great teacher and a quality classroom through your eyes? What does that look like?
Well, I didn't know how the PowerPoint presentation would work this evening, but I tell you what, I'll reference it often. that last sentence, right? That teacher, the great teachers have authentic love for their children. Because remember, you only remember part of what people tell you. You remember more of what you see, but you always remember how someone made you feel. And your great teachers have an authentic love for their students. Don't mistake me. Sometimes love can be tough love. Love can be discipline. Right, Clay? Say yes. Say yes. So love can be discipline as well. But it's still love nonetheless. And so your great teachers have that authentic love, and you just feel it. You feel when you go in the room, and I'm sorry I'm vague with that, but you can tell when you go into a room that has that feeling. Those classrooms are very structured. They're very structured. There's discipline in those classrooms, but you can tell and you can feel within a couple minutes of walking in that room that teacher loves those students and is an excellent teacher. So it's a teacher that loves those students, but certainly has those other attributes you need to have to be successful. They're organized. They're knowledgeable. They continue to stay up to date and train themselves and so on. They communicate well with parents, so they have all those attributes as well.
And just to finish this up, how will you handle teachers that do not meet this standard? And what is the role of the building administrator in the assessment?
I think that goes back to one of the first questions about protocol. Definitely goes back to protocol. If we have a teacher that we feel, and this is qualitative and quantitative knowledge. I mean, this isn't just a test score. So I want to stress that to the teachers. And not, well, this will meet test score, so something's wrong here. No, you need to have discussions, and you need to dig a little bit deeper to find out what really is the case. But the building principal is who works with that teacher on a regular basis. So I would be informed of the situation, certainly, and I might have suggestions. And I think that's what you would be paying me for, the head educator and the experience, and I might have some suggestions. But it needs to start with that building principal. And it needs to be in an improvement plan with the aim of truly helping that teacher improve what they're doing. And so you may assign them a mentor teacher, you may send them to a conference, what have you, but it needs to be with the building principal, because that is protocol. That's the way things should be, and effective schools have that in place.
Thank you.
John, given the current economic conditions, what % of total revenue do you think a district should hold in its fund balance? And then at what point do you say this is enough of the rainy day fund? We need to invest everything we have in improving achievement and the educational experience.
Our goal in New Lothrop, and we're not there because we're a smaller school, our cash flow is less, has always been 15 to 20%. We've maintained that, but we still have to borrow money. I think certainly not having to borrow money is, not only does it save you money because you pay to borrow money, but it's the principle of it, is that you're borrowing money to run your operations. You know, and I know our federal government operates that way, but you know, you really need to. It's the point of it. It's the fact that really you need to take in at least how much money you're spending, and you need to have that reserve. It's referred to as a rainy day reserve, but really, what I've learned as a business manager in 9 years is I've learned that it really is a cash flow issue as well, because going in, I didn't understand, I certainly do now, that fund equity is not what some people think. It's not this amount of money that sits in a bank. It's part of your cash flow, and so how many days can you operate? If that money were gone, like your home budget, if you didn't receive a paycheck, how long could you go? And so, 60 days is a goal with our school district, and it's worked well, but we've still had to borrow money because our budget is smaller and the cash flow is not there. But to answer your question, for a school district, and I have studied your finance, I would think 17% is probably 15 to 17%. But again, don't hold me to that because I have not seen cash flow reports, so I'm not that intricate in that detail, but I think that would be about that amount of money.
Okay, thank you.
John, what specific data resources do you use to make decisions regarding finance and then curriculum?
Okay, there's two totally different areas. So with finance, the way I approach finance is I'm very procedural. And so the data that I use is certainly the general ledger. I do once a month go over the budget with our bookkeeper line by line, even though my bookkeeper knows what areas I like to highlight, but it takes a couple hours. And so I'm very detail oriented using the general ledger, certainly holding that up against our budget of where we should be. I use cash flow reports, I use individual building budgets, and again, I use our overall district budget. And I also have developed my own communication that I use for the Board of Education. Each month, it doesn't take long. It's about a 10-minute report of when I do go through the budget with that bookkeeper and highlight different areas. I do a 10-minute report with the Board of Education. And so there's a detailed process side to budget, and then there's a communication side, and I communicate that information as well. And by the way, when I go through that process, I sit down with all union presidents are invited, but I sit down with the teachers union president, go through the process with him. And so he is there seeing this process of going through that general ledger, and that really builds a lot of trust with that data, because we're transparent. There's nothing to hide. Here's our financial situation. Data that I use on curriculum decisions. Okay, with curriculum decisions, much of what I talked about in my presentation, it's both the qualitative and quantitative data. I certainly, like everyone else, use test scores. That's certainly information that you can use to benchmark where you are, to benchmark progress of individual students, progress of classrooms, and so on. But again, I want to stress that I use the qualitative information. And that is the discussions, again, the building principals, hands-on with the teachers, so discussions that the principal has, even through the evaluation system with teachers and so on. So I use that dialogue too, and the notes from that in making decisions. So I'm very procedural. The term I guess I would use for for both the finance use of data and the curriculum use of data, I'm very pragmatic, systematic. I have found on very procedural. On items.
Okay, last part that refers to the budget. When you really have to sit down and draw up the budget, what information do you need to have right in front of you on the table in front of you as you develop the budget? What's the most important?
Well, I need to have my budget process. First of all, I meet with the department heads. It starts early on, department heads, building principals, and so on, as far as the needs. I have that in front of me. But I certainly have where I project the audit to come in at, but again, that's until the audit happens. I may not have that final number, but I have a pretty good grip on it, and I'm usually pretty close. I need a good idea of the student count, projected student count numbers. We're actually pretty close on that, believe it or not, with our system. And I need to have historical data and projected data out from not only the year in budgeting, but projected out. And I need to also have student enrollment, and the retirement rate projection. I need that to the best of my ability, even though we may not have that final number. I need to have a projection of health insurance increase. And then I need to have a projection to the best of my ability, even though I don't have that final number yet, and it changes, but where the per pupil foundation number is going to come in at. So that's the basic information. That's very fluid information, because I start early in the budget process, so it's very fluid until some of those numbers are finalized.
Okay, great, thank you.
John, my question is going to have a follow-up, so, but for now, could you tell me what the relationship between a school board and a superintendent should look like?
I sure can. That relationship, just like the other relationships, with whether it be staff, parents, students, needs to be built on trust and respect, not only between the superintendent and a board member, but amongst the board members. Trust and respect is the foundation. And back to my presentation, is also the example, the modeling from this, the tone of the district starts in this room right here. And if we don't have trust and respect for each other, and we're not going to agree all the time, and we shouldn't agree all the time. That's why we have, there's, between the governance team, 7 board members and myself, that's why we have that, is checks and balances. But at the end of the day, that trust and respect has to be there for each other for what? As long as the common good is the best interest of these students. But then the relationship needs to be one of communication. There needs to be open communication, and I will say this, of relevant information. So it won't be just an ongoing communication with you, it will be relative information. And, you know, I think we need to know each other. Simply know each other, and that kind of goes hand in hand with the trust and respect that's built. A professional relationship. I have found that to be the key. When you have that, and I have right now 7 strong, they're strong board members, they're strong personalities. But it's because it's built on the trust and respect and the best interest of the kids that.
Well, you
we're able to move
almost
on.
answered the follow-up, because I would like you to describe those characteristics that you just mentioned, how they are evident in your position as superintendent in your district now.
And my answer is
Pretty much
simple. The outcomes. We're very, and I'm not gonna go on about that, but we're very proud of our outcomes. We're very proud of our, and again, back to that presentation, when I say outcomes, test scores, hey, great test scores, but I'm proud of our students' behavior, low discipline incidences. I'm proud of our graduation rate, our participation rate. And so I believe, because leadership does start at the top, it's a fact. It's in the book, Good to Great. It starts at the top, it's a fact. And the outcome, the student outcomes are excellent. And so I'm very proud of it. Hey, we've worked through some tough evenings together. They're strong personalities, so I wanna make sure you know that. It's not like, well, I say this, that's how it goes, and that's why we get along. Just listen to me and we'll get along. No, that's not it at all. We work through it, but when you have that foundation, it not only is conducive for a good relationship with us in decision-making, but I truly believe it sets the tone for the district.
Thank you.
Okay, could you take a moment and just describe for us what you see as the classroom of the future?
Well, with recent data, I don't know if you've seen the latest from last week, they're starting to put a little bit of a hold on online classes. Data's not quite what they thought it would be. What do I see? I see a teacher. I see a teacher in there, because remember, and I'll quit referring to that presentation, it's hard not to. There's a lot more than just facts and data that we're giving to children. We're also, again, modeling life skills, and we're modeling sense of community and how to treat other people. And so I see a teacher there that models those behaviors and truly cares about the kids. I see a teacher that has access to, and I was a technology director for years, and so I can qualify what I'm going to say here. It's not just something fancy I read, I've lived it. And that is, I see a teacher that has cutting edge technology, not bleeding edge technology. When I first got into technology, I went full force. I know that's probably hard for you to believe. I had a high energy in my 20s, and I went full force. I know that's hard to believe. But I was excited when I was in my 20s, and we were going to be cutting edge. What I found that was bleeding edge. You need to take a little bit of step back, see what's really working, and apply that. So I see a teacher that has the tools that they need, and I see a teacher that is supported by their administration, superintendent, Board of Education, and community and parents. And so your question was, what do I see in the classroom? I want to make sure I answer that.
How do we remain attractive and competitive when enrollment drives the revenue?
All right, when enrollment.
How do we remain attractive and competitive when, with the declining enrollment that's going on and everything? How do we remain attractive and competitive when enrollment drives the revenue?
when I got to New Lothrop, and I won't dwell on New Lothrop, it's about what I can do here. But when I got to New Lothrop, we were declining with students, and then we grew about 15% over the next 7 years. I'm not taking credit; it was a team effort. It was truly a team effort. What we really did, and what we would do is focus on a quality education. Focus on a quality education. Focus on what we can do to make sure we have the highest level of student achievement. And that, what I found is that word gets out. And then there are marketing techniques you can use to communicate that information to others. But I found first and foremost, declining enrollment. I want to make sure I answer your question. Declining enrollment. And basically, how would we?
Well, no, it's how do we remain attractive and competitive when enrollment drives the revenue, whatever the enrollment is, whether it's going up or going down. I mean, you've answered it pretty well
Focusing
already.
Focus on what we do,
Right.
be the best we could possibly be. Yeah.
John, when you said you increased to 15%, what did you do to, how did you market that? How did you sell it? Because 15% is a big number.
Especially, and you need to know we're out in the country.
Right.
That's important, but that's important to know, because people had to drive out there to bring their students. We weren't on a fringe of a
So you had to sell it somehow. What tools did you use to sell it?
I could, because I was in charge of it in Bay City schools. But I'm not gonna give you a fancy answer. Really, we focused on our product. We focused on those student achievement pieces, getting kids out participating, modeling, getting a positive climate in place to the best of our ability. We still have some way to go in that. We focused on a curriculum alignment process driven by teachers and administrators, and we focused on that. Once we had some momentum, like just this morning actually, so if I seem a little tired, I do a radio program every 2 weeks at the local radio station in Owasso. So I am tired. I had to get up, because I get up and run anyway, so I had to get up extra early, and so it's been a long day. But every 2 weeks I'm at the radio station, and I don't sit there really like a commercial about our school, but I'm certainly talking about those kids and how proud I am of them, of their test scores and the state championship and this, that, the other. That gets around. The communication plan I handed out to you. I'm very consistent. I do a monthly writing to the newspaper. I write my own press releases after board meetings and so on. I take ownership of that because it's very important what gets out to the press. And so there are techniques I use, but really it comes down to the quality product. Because I found through my experience at Bay City that if you don't have that quality product where you want it first in your advertising, you know what I found through experience? It actually reminds people that they're upset with the district. So we did some billboards and we did some different things at Bay City, and I was finding it was actually reminding people that I'm mad at the district for that reason, or they need to work on this, or this is a problem. It actually reminded people that we needed to focus on our product, which Bay City is. Bay City's doing a great job. So focus on the product, and there are techniques you can use, and the communication plan has those.
Last one, and we'll move on. How long did it take to get to that 15% increase?
Oh, that was over the 7 years. We actually, though, had our smallest kindergarten classes last year. We had a very low birth rate, and so the trend finally ended after 7 years. It was over that time period.
Thank you.
Yeah. It was actually 14 points. If I can get you that number.
No, it's fine.
John, can you describe for us your management style and give us some examples of how that's worked for you and perhaps how it's not worked for you?
And it's just semantics, and I don't get caught up in semantics, but it truly is more of a leadership style, because I do see there's some stark differences, fundamental differences between even the term manager and leader. Leadership style, one thing I've learned is there's a science to leadership and there's an art to leadership. So as far as on the science side of it, certainly being organized, being structured, having systems in place, overseeing operations, that's the science side of it. But what I find as I mature as a leader, it's the arts side of leadership that as far as style, that I'm finding truly. I knew it in theory, and I knew it from my mentors. I have mentors that I really look up to and try to model after that have proven success. It's the people side, it's the soft skills. It's the understanding what motivates people. It's the understanding of how to work with people. It's the understanding of even how to develop other leaders for their best interests and so on. And so, my leadership style by definition, because there are terms, and I know the terms from the degree I just got, you know, really it is situational, really, because some situations I'll be direct with you. I mean, certainly servant leadership, if you have the right people on the bus, and what I've described to you all evening, you support them and let them do their job and actually stay out of the way. But there are times that top-down leadership needs to be in place. And so that's why I use the term situational leadership, because I prefer servant leadership and transform leadership, but it truly is situational, because there are times that it's more of a traditional leadership, top-down, that needs to happen to correct a problem or to move forward. So,
Can you give us a specific example of your use of the situational leadership?
I've had a couple employees that were not performing as we saw fit, and we tried to work with them. Like I mentioned, we tried to get them help or get them a mentor, and it just wasn't working out. So the situational leadership is simply this, that they had to be dismissed. You know, plain and simple. It just wasn't the right fit, wasn't working out. Situational leadership, as far as servant leadership, is what I prefer, and that leadership style was what passed our bond. There was a question about the bond, was the rally that we had, raising the tax to 7.1 mils, and we had a 76% yes vote. And so that was servant leadership. I let the people take off. Or the technology that I've already mentioned this evening. I was the one that spearheaded that, but again, I'm trying to step back and let other people lead that charge, because that's when I found you get your best results. But I want you to know I do identify where I need to be a top-down leader and make a correction if a correction needs made. I won't be bashful about it.
Thank you.
John, what is the most difficult situation you've dealt with in your professional career, and how did you handle it?
As a superintendent, it was actually my second year, New Lothrop. Again, New Lothrop, we just got the record-breaking state title, and wrestling is very important to New Lothrop. They had at that time 12 state titles, and it was very important. And there was a young man that applied for an open elementary teaching position, and he was good, by the way. And we're still friends to this day. No hard feelings, but I have a hiring procedure I follow. Well, that young man, who was a wrestling coach, was going to be into the wrestling program, not the head coach, but one of the coaches, was not the recommendation from the elementary committee that I had that brought me candidates. Have certain steps. The candidates do come to me eventually, but was not recommended. And indeed, when the final candidates came to me and I interviewed them, I didn't feel that he was the best candidate for that teaching position. Well, I'm pretty politically savvy, and I'm in a small community, and again, I live in town, and my ears work, and I can hear, and I can see that this is not going to be a popular decision at all. We have a library. I don't know how many that library holds, but I'm a new superintendent. There were probably 60, 70 people that came that evening. I was just following a procedure, because you have to be consistent in my leadership. You have to be consistent of how you handle things, especially hiring. You have to be very consistent. And yeah, it was tough. I even had random phone calls. People would call me and say, "Stricker, do the right thing or else," and hang up on me, and just crazy. I didn't know what that meant. The mafia calling me. I don't know. I was afraid to go for my morning runs. Find me out in some field or somewhere, because I didn't hire the wrestling coach. So, but you know what? You know what's neat about this story, and of course why I use it as an example, is because it, if you do things the right way, most of them, not everyone, but 19 out of 20 of those people, you know what, they respect what I did, because that teacher we ended up hiring is one of our most beloved teachers. He truly was the best candidate. And again, I'm friends with the gentleman that didn't get the job. Great guy, great teacher. He wasn't the number one candidate. So that was a very, very, I'm a second-year superintendent in a wrestling community, and I didn't hire the wrestling coach. So while that may sound small to you and maybe not a good example of a tough decision, I'm telling you, when you're a second-year superintendent, there's 60, 70 people, and phone calls, random phone calls, do the right thing or else. It was tough. But you know what, I have to give credit to that community. Again, 19 out of the 20 people they respect it, actually.
Thank you.
You bet.
John, can you give us some examples of how you might develop some innovative business partnerships? And tell us about some specific grant applications you have submitted over the last several years, and what was your success on them?
Most of the last 9 years, most of the grant applications I'm involved in are forum grants through the state, and so they're pretty successful to where if you meet certain criteria, you get the money through the title program. We just actually had a Title VI, it was a new section that we received technology money. But that's because of my position. Competitive grants, what I do with them is I forward them to the department. So if it's one for school council, and I'll forward it to the high school principal to get to the school counselor. If it's for an elementary technology, I'll forward it to a couple of our teacher champions for technology in that book, or in that building. So really the competitive grants, when I was a technology director, I was more involved, but that's been, again, about 10 years ago now. But now the grants I'm responsible for are more the forum grants. My part in the competitive grants is making sure the right people have those. What was the other part to your question?
Have you formed any partnerships with any of the local businesses to help you in your areas?
Oh, most definitely, and again, I used it first round as an example, but it's an ongoing partnership. Actually, our last Board of Education meeting, we're partnering with our DDA, which is our Downtown Development Authority, the new Lothrop Police Department, and the school district. This just got approved our last board meeting, so this is hot off the press. And we're partnering to get more patrol hours in our village, in a partnership with a police officer working with the school district. So that's an example. And then, of course, I gave you the example that took 4 years of the trading part of our old building for the woods, and now that woods is nationally recognized. That was the village's woods, and we traded it actually for a part of our old building we were going to tear down. That's now a police station. So it's an ongoing partnership with local businesses and so on. When I was in Bay City schools, it was on a larger scale, so I might go to the Kiwanis meeting, a lot of the clubs. I did more speaking. It was, because of the size district, it was more formal meetings. I would go to dinners and luncheons. But another example, actually just last week, I went to the Farm Bureau breakfast, which may sound like small. We had both our state and state representative, state senator attended that, and we had all the businesses were represented in the Owasso, New Lothrop, Corona area, and so I do attend functions like that. That was just last week, and so it's an ongoing process. And I'm sorry I'm wearing those words out, but then again I'm not. I mean, it's you build a relationship with those people that you don't just go to them when you need money from them. You spend time with them and you get to know them, and so a lot of what I do is just the ongoing relationship, not just going to them when I need their vote to pass a millage or when I need them to give us money to put up a new school board.
Thank you.
John, what is your philosophy and position concerning schools of choice? Do you have experience in this area? What are you doing, New Lothrop? Do you have that there?
Yeah, actually, our growth that I mentioned, we went from 8%. I don't have to yell. This young man here reminds me of in the Lance Armstrong commercial. Dad, you can use an inside voice with your cell phone. I don't know if it's an old man thing. I think I have to yell. A school choice, we grew from, when I got to New Lothrop, we were around 7-8%, and now we're at about 26% of our student body is school of choice. We're getting some very good students, and actually we're finding our test scores really are maintaining due to school choice, and so it hasn't really impacted our test scores or student achievement outcomes. What is impacting that is our free and reduced lunch price. our county is going up, and I'm seeing a correlation there. But we do a lot. We actually started a program for our school choice students. It's called US program. My high school principal did it. I can't take credit. To where as soon as we have a school choice student come into our district, that we partner them up with another student right away. That's one thing that we do. And then we try to get them involved with a coach, get them in, whether it be drama, music, athletics. We really try to get them out for a team right away, because we all know that's where those kids really connect. So we have a special program because we were growing so fast with school choice. We needed to identify those kids and involve them right away. Well, guess what? We're retaining those students. They're staying. And I don't think it's a rocket science what we did. We just got them in and pulled them in. But I have to give our students credit. I certainly can't take credit that we have some really good young people. We have some really good young people that take those students in and embrace them. So we are very specific about what we do on that, and we did have a lot of growth due to, I feel like, because we had good results and have been identified as a pretty good school.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
John, could you give us some examples of curriculum initiatives that you have either developed or implemented to boost your student achievement in your district?
All due respect, most anything we do, whether it be professional development, curriculum alignment, or what have you, that's why I presented it this evening. It's our ultimate goal for everything we do is the student achievement. Curriculum initiatives, again, as mentioned, first round, so I won't try to give the same exact answer, but really what I led, I didn't specifically do it. I have an outstanding curriculum director, and my principals are outstanding. So credit goes to where credit's due with those gentlemen. But really, my leadership, though, coming in was that the ownership of curriculum alignment needed to be the teachers. Through administration and even through a board committee, we had a board committee, and then the Board of Education for final approval of curriculum, certainly. But the ownership, so we set up, what we did specifically, we set up building level committees, grade level committees, and subject area committees. And then we do have one committee that represents the whole district that everything eventually goes through. It takes a little bit more time, but the ownership of what we do comes through that committee structure. So whether it be we're aligning our curriculum to the Common Core standards, we're going through the NCAA advanced accreditation process, or what have you, it goes through that committee structure. So what I initiated in the big picture, I know that's not a specific, something that was in the front page of the paper, but I'm not worried about that, because it's a core of what we do of steady outcomes in an outstanding curriculum program.
Okay, I'm going to tweak my question just a little bit based on what you had said before, because you mentioned that all of the kids at your school did fill out college applications, so I don't know if they all plan to go, or will go, or want to go.
Right.
But we would like to know what type of curriculum monitoring or development process should be in place that would ensure that curriculum is met for students who may not be on that college track.
Oh, there's definitely some of those students that will not go to college. And what we do, again, I talk to the senior class often, and when I'm talking to those students, I'm very careful that, again, back to the belief statement I gave you, my goal and mindset is that each student do the best that they can with the abilities that they're given. Certainly, not every one of those students is gonna go to college, and you know what? Not every one of them may be able to go to a trade school. We have some students, a certain population of students, that may just learn a trade, a skill, and go right into the workforce. But the mindset is this, that those students do the best that they possibly can and achieve the highest level they possibly can. And I make sure I stress to those students, success isn't that you went to a four-year university. Whether you want to go to a vo-tech type industry or education, or again, learn a specific skill or what have you, that's what's pushed in there. So could you ask your...
Sure, yep, so then just what type of curriculum monitoring or development process should be in place to ensure that those students have their needs met as well?
It's through the curriculum director and the building level committees, subject level committees in our district school improvement team. And again, I emphasize curriculum director. We have a very sharp curriculum director. I'm very blessed with him.
John, last question of the night. What teaching methods or programs should be in place to improve student performance for students who come from a lower socioeconomic environment?
A specific program for those students.
Doesn't have to be specific. What do you do in your school? And have you raised your scores based on what you've implemented for the lower socioeconomic students?
We do, yeah. We do a lot of intervention at a younger age. We do testing, even when school choice students come in, we test them. And then we do a lot of tutoring. I think tutoring has been one of the keys that I've noticed, because I want you to know this, I'm glad you touched on that. When I look at test scores, when our teachers look at test scores, yeah, it's fun to have that in the newspaper and it benchmarks, okay, that's nice, people take pride in that. But really what we're after is that individual student improvement. So if we have students that come from a challenged social economic background, that maybe have a lower test score as a result, or at a certain level, tutoring, I have found, we do a lot of specific tutoring, has helped those students improve. So I want you to know when we look at test scores, when we examine test scores, we're looking at individual student improvement is very important. And so the tutoring, and then some of the students may be pulled out of the classroom to work with. We have teachers that will work with them specifically if necessary. But really, you know what? It really goes back to the general philosophy that we have a good group of teachers, and that they're able to work with a variety of level of students, pushing every student to do the best they can. And that's also where technology helps. I have noticed that technology in a classroom, even back when I was a technology director in Bay City and before that, I really noticed that technology allowed some of your students that are at the upper end to move forward, and giving the teacher more time to spend with some students maybe that have some more challenges and so on. But you know what, we really don't identify those students. If they come from a lower socioeconomic background, really they're students that we're going to push to be the best that they possibly can. If they need some tutoring, so be it. If they need to work on special computer programs, so be it. But every student we're going to push to be the best they can.
And do you see intervention with parents as maybe a helpful tool into that?
No question. At any level, whether it be even your top students or your students with some challenges, working with the parents is an integral part of all the student achievement that I presented tonight, whether it be the academic side or even the life skills side of students that don't know how to show up on time. We have that situation where certainly working with the parents is a big part of what we do in that particular case. So, yeah, certainly.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for coming back and spending time with us. We appreciate you showing up.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay, I'm warming it up.
But the heart, though,
There
remember,
we
it's a
go.
good supply.
That's true.
Thanks for coming. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thanks for your time.
We've not asked enough questions.
I don't know. No, that's okay. We'll see you later. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, John.
Yeah. Thanks for calling me on.